Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. Today I'm doing a movie review on the movie Challengers, starring Miss Zendaya and directed by Luca Guadagnino. Hopefully I'm saying his name right. Correct me in the comments if I said it wrong. This movie was obviously super highly anticipated. I remember when it dropped and everybody was kind of talking about it, and I wanted to go see it in theaters and I just never got around to it. But what happened was I think some of you guys know if you've been following my videos, I was in LA for the Holly Shorts Film Festival and I had a wonderful time. And while I was there, I was able to meet up with a friend and we got to talking and she mentioned the movie. And I was like, no, I haven't seen it. She pretty much told me that she thought the movie was really well done and it was one of those movies that she wanted to go back and rewatch. So I was like, okay, I got to see this movie now. So when I got back, I made a point to watch it. And now I'm like, okay, now we got to talk about this. I have to talk about this with you guys, but I will be talking about certain scenes in the movie, so it might be a little spoilery. Just to let you guys know, if you have not seen the movie yet, maybe you should watch it first before you watch this movie review. Or if you're okay with it, it's totally fine. Then just continue watching. Before I jump into the movie, make sure you guys like this video and subscribe if you're not already. Be sure to leave a comment in the video if you've seen the movie and how you felt about it. So Miss Zendaya in this movie was kind of like, I would say she was unlike any other character that Zendaya has done. But keep in mind that I do not watch Euphoria and I don't really know what her character is like in that. I've heard that it's really like depressing, and I don't know if she's on drugs or whatever, but it's just really, it's like Degrassi but on steroids, I guess. That's what I've heard. And I know she plays a teenager in that, so it's obviously different than this role. And this one we kind of see her in two different, not even two, I was going to say two different age brackets, because it's a lot of back and forth from the past and the present. And so we kind of see her play a teenager a little bit in the beginning, and then it kind of goes to when she's an adult, and it's all back and forth, that kind of thing. So I think we're all used to seeing her play younger roles, but this was very different. I mean, she was a mom in this one. Her character was just very complicated. It was very complex. And I think at times you just didn't really know how to feel about it. Like you were like, I don't know if I want to defend her or not on this, which I think was kind of the point of the movie, that all three main characters were super flawed, very human. At specific moments in the movie, there were times where you were rooting for them, and then there were times where you were like, no, you're tripping, you're doing too much. And so I kind of want to go through each character, Tashi, Art, and Patrick, and I'll start with Tashi just because she's like at the center of all of it. Obviously, like when we're first introduced to her, like you immediately know that she's kind of, I don't want to say that she's the popular girl, but she's clearly already a rising star. Like she's already kind of being viewed as like, I mean, people are kind of already viewing her as that she's going to be pro at some point. And she has this confidence about her. I wouldn't really say cockiness, but she has this confidence about her because she knows that she's good, and she knows that she has something with tennis. And I think especially at that age, at like 18, 19, or when you're in college, like sometimes you really believe that like this life that you have planned out for yourself is how it's going to be. And then you quickly realize that life does not work that way for the most part. It's not always bad, but I think when you're younger, like you kind of think, okay, like I have an idea of what I want to do or what I want to pursue. And at this age, I'm going to do it. Or even with like getting married and having kids, like I'm going to get married at this age, I'm going to have kids at this age. And it's like, I think everybody that's older knows that that's not how it really works. And so I would say with Tashi, that was the one thing that I empathize with her on, is that you can tell that in her mind, she kind of had her life laid out the way she thought that it was going to be. And obviously, like tennis was going to be at the center of that. And this is a spoiler, you guys, when she, um, injured her knee and it was like clearly she wasn't going to be able to bounce back from that, that just kind of shattered, I think, what she thought her life was going to be or what it was going to look like. I think especially when you start really young and you kind of dedicate all your time to this sport, not even just tennis, but just being an athlete in general. And it's just really intense, In a way, I think that we can all kind of relate to that. And I think there's an additional pressure there when not only your parents or your family or your peers are rooting for you, but then you're also having these high expectations on yourself. And that's just a lot at that age, at any age, really. But being so young like that, and that's kind of the time where most people are trying to figure out who they are and what they want to do and figuring out what they like and don't like. And so already having those high expectations set on you is actually that can do a lot to your mental if you let it. And so obviously I think that plays a major part in how she is as an adult and once she's married to Art and she's a mom and everything like that. And even though she's not a player anymore and she never went pro, like tennis is clearly still at the center of her world. And she makes it the center of her world. And it's almost like a it almost kind of feels like, which is kind of sad, it almost kind of feels like she's like, without tennis, who am I or what are we to each other? Meaning her and Art. It's like without that, I think she would be really lost. And I think in a sense she still kind of is just because of everything that happens. And I won't go too much into what happens just because it's a lot. And I really feel like it's something that like you guys should watch yourself if you haven't watched it already, of course. Yeah, I think she's a really complex character. I think in my opinion, it feels like out of the 3, Art was the one that kind of maybe matured or changed the most once they got older. I feel like Tashi was kind of still the same. Obviously, her injury, um, did a number on her, and I think Patrick was just always Patrick, you know what I mean? So I kinda feel like Art was the one that kinda changed, out of all 3 of them, but I still feel like, they never really let go of each other and what happened when they were younger, and that was something that kind of always that they always carried with them, I think. Another thing with Tashi too that I thought about was I think her relationship to tennis, um, is a little different than Art and Patrick's because of how she got there. Now we don't fully know her backstory. I think we get little snippets of maybe like how she came to be a tennis star, how she even got into it. Clearly, her parents are involved in her life from the beginning. They may have even been a little strict because she makes a comment when she's in the hotel room with Art and Patrick about how her parents wouldn't have really let her go to boarding school and to have been raised in that environment. And I think she's saying because of like boys and probably it would have been an easier chance for her to get into trouble if she did that. I don't want to necessarily say that tennis or having that career meant more to Tashi than it did to Art and Patrick. Maybe it did. And the reason why I'm kind of saying that is because I think Tashi is looking at it like I'm like one of the lucky ones that I got here. With Art and Patrick, like they came from I think they were in boarding school or like academy school. I imagine that you have to have money to go to those things. So I'm sure their parents are maybe not rich, but they're probably like well off. And so obviously, like, and then they're white and they're male. And so obviously they would have had a higher chance to get to that versus her. Like if she didn't put in all the hard work that she did, if she didn't get good grades, if she didn't act right, all this stuff that I think there's a different relationship with tennis with her compared to Art and Patrick. Now let's move on to Art. Now, honestly, I watching it, I kind of felt like he was the most quote unquote innocent out of the 3. Um, I think once you watch the full movie, you know that he was not innocent in what happened. But I think I mean, I guess if you're comparing like wrongs and who kind of did the most wrong, I would say that he was kind of like on the back burner of that. Like I feel like he kind of got the short end of the stick a lot of the time. I think between Art and Patrick, Art was kind of like the more I don't know if I want to use the word submissive, but that's what comes to mind when I think of him. He was kind of like the more submissive one. Like there's a clear distinction between Art's personality and Patrick's personality. And I think it's really prevalent in the way that they approach Tashi and the way that they are intimate with her, the way that they speak with her and all those things. If you really pay close attention to and I think the scene between all 3 of them in the hotel room is pretty significant. Even if you watch, like, when she's sitting between them and this isn't really a spoiler, they kinda show this in the trailer. She's sitting between them, and obviously, like, she makes out with each one of them, and when she kisses Art, Art is much more like he seems to be much more gentle with her, and it's kind of a little bit more sweet versus Patrick. Patrick is like shoving his tongue down her throat. Like he's a little bit more aggressive, even in the way that they speak to her. I think the scene where Tashi and Patrick have their argument, you know, the things that he's saying to her and the way he's speaking to her, like, I don't think Art would have ever done that. And I don't think he ever really did, as far as I can remember in the movie. So just little things like that, you can tell that it was very different, different personalities and different ways of showing their love and their affection for Tashi. I will say some of you guys might be mad at me for this. I think Art is kind of like the most likable character out of the three. Um, Obviously, like I said, Tashi and Patrick have their moments, but then there's a lot of other moments where I was like, no. There's just a lot of other moments where I'm like, absolutely not. Like we would not be cool if you were acting like that, or if you did that to me. There's no way I would be cool with you after that. But again, there's things that Art did. I won't say that. I think there's one main thing that Art did that kind of that I would say was really messed up and probably like the worst thing he did in the film. I won't say that obviously what it is, but that just shows that he's not innocent either. But granted, it was something that happened when they were like younger. So now what do we say about Patrick? Oh, Patrick was just Patrick, you know. I really don't think Patrick ever truly changed throughout the whole film. I didn't really see much character development from him, and I don't know if that was intentional. But obviously there was gaps in between the flashbacks, so there was years that he wasn't talking to Art, or he wasn't around Art and Tashi, and so we kind of don't fully know what happened with him, but you kind of get an idea that he's not doing well and that he's clearly broke, and that he's struggling financially. I think from the outside looking in, like from his perspective, it probably looks like Tashi and Art are like living the life, like they have money. Um, Art is doing really well as a tennis player. Tashi is his coach. They have a child. They're, staying in expensive hotels. Like, they dress nice, all these things. And I'm sure for him that's hurtful to see considering what happened. Not just with Tashi, but just how good of friends that him and Art used to be. To be honest, that was the part that actually made me more sad. Not so much that like Patrick, this is probably a spoiler, not so much that Patrick lost Tashi or that like they didn't end up together, or so we think. I don't know, because it ended kind of weird. But the fact that it like he lost his friend out of that. Now you could argue that they allowed this girl to get in between their friendship and that they played into it in the beginning, because I definitely think that she played both of them. I think that they all used each other, but I definitely feel like she played them both. You know what I mean? So it's really not even that for me. It's more so like, dang, like he really lost his friend from all of this. That was like the one person I feel like that would have had his back, had Tashi not come in between them that way, or had they not allowed her to do that, then they most likely would have still been friends, and maybe Patrick would have been better off, or at least he would have been like, I mean, at least he would have still had like a friend. You know what I mean? I think his cockiness and his confidence and the way he kind of carries himself, I think I think it's more genuine when he's younger versus when he's older, and he's still trying to kind of play that role that he did when he was 18. And I think by that point, by the time he's like 30, I don't think it's genuine. I think that he's clearly hurting and that he never got over what happened between all three of them. And I think there's a little bit of a crack, if you notice in the scene when they're in the sauna and he's talking to Art. And there's a moment where Art is just talking about tennis, right? And I think Patrick takes it more personal, and he's like, you see like his smile drop from his face, and he's like kind of like, what are you trying to say? I don't matter. And Art is like, basically like, no, like we're talking about tennis. I'm not talking about you and I, like our friendship. That's the only thing that I'm talking to you about right now, because we have nothing else to talk about. And he kind of shuts him down. And that's like, I think that's the first time we see Art kind of be like that, at least with Patrick, where he was like he's really not playing with him. And like that scene, I was kind of like, ooh, Art. I was like, okay, Art, I kind of like you to being like that. Hold on.
That's right, I said it.
No, but seriously though, he was like, he just completely like dismissed him and shut him down. I think that really hurt Patrick's feelings, but he wouldn't say that, right? He's not gonna tell him like you're hurting my feelings, man. But to me, his facial expression showed that he was hurt. It's kind of all like a facade, I feel like. But I think what's real is, like I said, I think he is hurt by not having this friendship or this connection with Art anymore, and also not having Tashi by his side anymore, and probably feeling like he missed out on so much. I think all of that is very real for him. But funny enough, I kind of feel like Tashi does the same thing. I was gonna say, especially with Patrick, but I guess she kind of does it with Art too. But I think she does it obviously with Patrick, where she kind of tries to act like she really doesn't care about him anymore, and whatever they had was like in the past, and it's through, and it's done, and I don't want anything to do with you. And clearly, that's not true. I think with them, there's a lot of what ifs because when, it's kind of like because they were so young and everything, I don't think they ever, and because of other things, I won't go into what it is, they never really had a chance to really explore their relationship. It was like it barely got off the ground and then it was over, right? And then she had her injury, and then I'm sure that was like at the forefront of her mind for months. I don't it's like they didn't really ever get a fair shot at being together, and so I'm sure I can imagine, like, if I was Tashi or if I was Patrick, I would be thinking, like, "Well, what if we stayed together? Like, what if things actually worked out? Like, how different would my life have been? Or would we have at least, like, stayed friends even if it didn't work out romantically?" And so I think there's a lot of that, and all 3 of them can't really let go. Maybe Art could have actually let go and been free of all of this if he didn't end up with Tashi, I feel like, which maybe sounds harsh, I don't know, but I think him still having a relationship with her and being connected with her is going to leak him to Patrick no matter what. And vice versa. Like if Patrick had been with Tashi, even if they weren't friends with Art anymore, like there still would have been a link and a connection with him just because of the history. It's all just really complicated and messy. It's definitely not something I would want to experience in my real life, but watching it in a movie is actually really entertaining. And it's kind of like reading a good book. It's like one of those books where like you have to keep turning the page to see what's going to happen. So overall I did like it. I definitely think it keeps you interested, right? I think it keeps you kind of hooked because you're like, or because of the whole back and forth between the past and the present, you're wondering how things are going to tie into each other or how it's going to end, right? I kind of was hoping for a little bit more, like a little bit more of a closure, I guess, at the end, but we didn't really get that. I don't know if that is indicative of a sequel or if that's just the way that the director chose to end it that way. Because not every movie or every story is just gonna have like a final, like the end where everything is like solved. I think just for me personally, like I like to see things wrapped up, and I feel like it wasn't. But yeah, I would definitely like recommend checking out the movie yourself. You guys let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know who you related to the most, or like maybe like which character you feel like was the most digestible, because they definitely all have their flaws. They definitely all did things that were not right. But for me, I would say like Art is the one that I feel like I could stand the most. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching and for tuning in. I will see you next time. Let me know in the comments if there is another movie that you would like me to review or that you would like me to react to. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.